Acts chapter 10. Hey, we turn a page. Where we left Peter at the end of chapter 9 was at the house of Simon the Tanner in Joppa, a seacoast town right on the Mediterranean Sea in the northern, although not far northern, but the northern part of Israel. And chapter 10 opens, what we have is chapter 10 opens in verse 1. At Caesarea, there was a man named Cornelius. Caesarea. Well, Caesarea is about 39 miles north of Joppa. It's on the seacoast as well. At Caesarea, there was a man named Cornelius, a centurion in what was known as the Italian regiment. Okay, what is a centurion? Well, a centurion was an officer in the Roman legion, and his particular regiment was known as the Italian regiment. No need to make a big deal out of it, but it's kind of nice to know. Okay, a couple of things about that. Cornelius, I think it's safe to say, was an Italian. He had been transferred by the Roman government to Caesarea. We're going to learn some more about who he is in verse 2. Oh, back up. It's clear that he was not a Jew, which meant if you're not a Jew, you're a Gentile. Okay? Verse 2. He and all his family were devout and God-fearing. Had they converted to Judaism? I don't know. That's not how Luke depicts them, just that they were devout, God-fearing people. Wouldn't it be interesting to hear the backstory of how Cornelius became a devout, God-fearing person? His family, all his family, were devout, God-fearing people as well. Now we don't know. I wish I did. He gave generously to those in need and prayed to God regularly. These were two of his outstanding characteristics. These are two things that he did that reflected his devotion and we talked about the fear of God. I think he's one of those people who is a great description of what it looks like to fear God. I don't think he trembled at the thought of God. I think he had a clear devotion to God and this reverence for him. And two ways that it expressed itself were in giving generously to those in need. That is an interesting, what I look at as a defining characteristic of a centurion. Most centurions who had been transferred anywhere into Israel, most of them weren't very happy about it. They thought of the Jews as backward and unnecessarily rigid. And oh, by the way, they have no regard for the gods. Well, all right. He gave generously to those in need and prayed to God regularly. I think that ought to mark believers today. It ought to mark me. I want to be generous to those in need. I don't want to just, be kind of like, oh yeah, they need something. I suppose I ought to put something in. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want my giving to the needy to be virtually nothing more than virtue signaling. We live in a world, I think this is a combination of two things: the human nature and the ubiquity of media. It's everywhere. And the virtue signaling, you can hardly look through your social media feeds, whatever of the dozens there are that you're in. Watch the news. See tons of virtue signaling. That wasn't what Cornelius was about. He was a man who was full on sincere and authentic. Verse 3, one day at about 3 p.m, he had a vision. Now, why would it be that 3 p.m? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, around 3 p.m. was a time of prayer that the Jews observed. Isn't that the time that Peter and John were going to the temple to pray when they healed the guy? Well, yeah, okay. Well, here's another possible reason that Luke would have included that time. It's because this was not a dream. I mean, this was in the middle of the afternoon, where even accounting for the fact that most cultures, especially in warm climates, after lunch, they are at rest, right? The siesta thing. Well, this was after that, and before going to bed. Cornelius had a vision. He distinctly saw an angel of God who came to him and said, Cornelius. The wording that Luke uses here is not insignificant. He distinctly saw an angel of God. It wasn't like he saw, I don't know, what is that? Well, I hear, he called me by name. Nope. He knew, he distinctly saw an angel. Verse 4. Cornelius stared at him in fear. All right, let's just pause a minute and think about it. Roman centurions were generally fierce warriors leading other warriors. They were not easily frightened. But when Cornelius saw an angel, he stared at him in fear. And I have this idea, I have this sense that if you or I saw an angel today, the odds, if when an angel appeared in the biblical narrative, Old and New Testaments, gives us an indicator of what it would be in our day, and I kind of think it does. The only person, there's only two people who were not afraid when they saw an angel. One was Jesus. The angels came and they attended to him after the temptations. They also came and attended to him in the Garden of Gethsemane. The other is Peter. When, in John, although Peter and John had been thrown in jail by the Sanhedrin. Angel appeared to them and released them from jail, and there's really no wording in there to indicate that they were afraid. We're going to come to the narrative of when Peter is once again released by an angel from jail. No words there about him being afraid. But when I want to, maybe what for me, is the place I look at most is in terms of this reaction to seeing an angel, is the shepherds on the hillside on the night Jesus was born. The King James says they were sore afraid. I don't see angels. We have this beatific view of angels, and I don't think that's accurate. Okay, Cornelius stared at the angel in fear. "What is it, Lord?" he asked. I kind of think he knew, okay, this is a God moment. The angel answered, "Your prayers and gifts to the poor have come up as a memorial offering before God. Now send men to Joppa to bring back a man named Simon, who's called Peter. He's staying with Simon the tanner, whose house is by the sea." That's not complicated. It's not that the angel had appeared to Cornelius to say, "You're going to be a world changer. You get the vision." No. But there's a few things. First of all, your prayers and gifts to the poor have come up as a memorial offering before God. Whatever else that means, it means Cornelius's prayers and his generosity had not gone unnoticed by God. I don't want to make too much of it, but neither has yours. Your prayers, your generosity, they don't go unnoticed by God. I don't know that that's earth-shattering, or, I don't know that it changes the course of our lives, but sometimes, for me, it feels like my prayers are going through the motions. My generosity is just generosity. Send men to Joppa to bring back a man named Simon, who's called Peter. He's staying with Simon the tanner, whose house is by the sea. That's as close to a GPS as anybody in the first century could ever get. And I think it is the case that when these men headed for Joppa, all they needed to be able to ask for is directions to Simon the tanner's house by the sea. And people in Joppa would have known, oh yeah, you just go down here and you know. Verse 7, when the angel who spoke to him had gone, Cornelius called 2 of his servants and a devout soldier who was one of his attendants. We don't know anything really about the servants. We do know this much about first century servants. They generally, their mission was to do whatever their master told them to do. So, but the soldier, a devout soldier, now that could mean a couple of things. One is it could be that he was a devout soldier in the sense that he took orders and executed on them in a devoted way, in a devout way. I think it's also even more likely that Cornelius's influence had drawn this soldier into a God-fearing relationship, a devout relationship with God. Okay. He told them everything that had happened and sent them to Joppa. Well, that was a 40-mile, 39-mile journey. Think about this. A trot will be about 8 miles an hour. But if you want to sustain a long walk, you're going to go about half that speed. 4 miles, 16 miles, no, 4 miles an hour. Have I told you how bad at math I am? This was not just, go across. this was a significant journey. It would have taken him at least a couple of days. Well, we'll leave it there and come back to it next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.